Are now
Entertainers.
Don't be stupid.
And contagious.
I'm wondering if that's really the line or not.
I feel stupid.
And contagious.
Yeah.
Oh, Bambos, here we are, just you and me now. We are on air today with Christina Hurst-Prager. She started the Leche Foundation. I believe it's called the Leche Group. It's in Switzerland.
Yeah.
She was not the main founder, but she founded it in Switzerland. And we're going to talk to her of all things, the two of us, on breastfeeding today on A Wonderful Chaos. Are you going to say today on? So today was one of those exciting days when the guest, we usually like to come on with the guest about 15 minutes ahead to make sure all technology is working.
A little bit of connection.
Just a little bit, just to make sure everything is kind of just expectations are set. And Christina came on about a second before we went live.
Yeah.
And the beauty is that I've kind of dedicated to, if someone doesn't show up, we're going to try to carry the theme of the show.
Ha 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 ha.
No, it's true.
I know.
and all I was thinking to myself is, great, two men who have no experience discussing breastfeeding. Like that's like my nightmare.
I have tissue just in case.
I mean, that would have been. It would have been worth watching just to see how far can they make it, you know?
I think we could do a pretty good job.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could talk about stigmatization and shaming and all this nonsense that comes in when people are like triggered by things that they're not even aware of in themselves, right?
I was even thinking, what kind of people get triggered from breastfeeding?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's not the only issue, of course, because I did discuss with Christina before she came on. And the issue was, I kind of said, what she said, what are we going to call it? Or I said, listen, we're just going to say it's a boob, get over it. And at first I could see her reaction was, well, that isn't necessarily all true, but it is actually a good reason why I work with this, is because to some degree, we just have to normalize it. Like why would we stigmatize something so natural? And that's sort of the beauty of inviting guests on. And it's also fun for me because there's, part of this wonderful chaos is we swim in waters we know absolutely nothing about.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, pretty much nothing about, unless you want to make some snide remark, but we're going to avoid that if we can for the moment. So I think, because I don't know what else to say outside of, we met Christina through Peter Koenig, who we had the Money Show with. Peter and her are friends. She's in Switzerland. Peter's also in Switzerland. So he had a connection, and he said, Andy, I think that this would be a great interview for you. And I just trust, if someone says it's a great interview, then I just trust them, and that's enough for me. So Christina sent her book to us. There's the book. It's all in German, so I don't even want to pronounce it, because ever since I started learning Dutch, my German has gone to hell. But I can say that in the Netherlands at the moment, there's more Germans in the Netherlands than Dutch at the moment. And we also have a reoccurrence of COVID. So a lot of the travelers are bringing COVID with them. So we'll see what happens with that. I say we bring her on. Hello.
Okay. Hi.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for your patience with all my iPhone and no works. But now
it was great to hear it. I felt like I was going through a life journey with you. First, the computer didn't work. Then the iPhone didn't work. You didn't have a battery. You didn't have a place to charge it. And then you figured out you could charge it in the computer. It was quite a wondrous journey we took even before meeting.
Thank you so much I don't think I could have figured it out on my own. But now I'm on Google Chrome, so it's fine.
So. Wonderful.
So how do we pronounce your book?
It's from untröstlichen Weinen zum friedlichen Sein, I think. It's about the crying. It's not about breastfeeding. It's about the crying of babies.
Yeah, I saw in your note that you sent to me, it said, my little book about crying babies.
Right. And what to do.
I have the same with Bambos, but he's not such a baby.
Well, maybe try some good things for babies on him. Yes, exactly.
Are you serious? Did you
And
wash
by
your
the way,
hands?
Yes, I did.
La Leche League is an American organization, and
Yes.
I brought it from America to Switzerland.
Yes,
So
just
I
to
don't
make
want to. Yeah, but
yes.
the quality thing from Peter, the source thing, it's important that the ones who founded it are the source.
Thank you.
I'm the source in Switzerland.
And I'd love to, because in my first notification, I wasn't so clear that you founded the Swiss branch and not the whole branch. So
yes.
Thank you for qualifying that. Yes.
Yeah.
And what brought you, out of all the things in the world that you could take up as a cause, why breastfeeding?
You mean to talk about or in general?
Or just to involve yourself with, right? Because there's 100 things you could do with your life, right? And so what makes that you say, wow, breastfeeding is going to be the thing I'm taking on?
Well, because my first child, who's now in a week, less than a week, he'll be 51.
Wow.
I know. He was born in California, the flower power time, but when most women still had full anesthesia just for the birth itself. But I was very lucky with it. There was a small group, flower power time, California, and they said, you don't have to do that. And it's a bit uncomfortable giving birth, but it's not really suffering. And it wasn't, although it was long and there was also a breastfeeding group attached to that.
Okay.
And I said, well, in Switzerland, everybody breastfeeds. And I had this image that, the young moms sitting in the villages around the fountain in the village, sitting there and breastfeeding. Well, then after my second child was born, we moved to Switzerland, and I saw that was totally, totally not true. Most women did want to breastfeed their children, but the way it was managed in hospital and then at home was a sure recipe for failure. So I thought, well, I have to bring this wonderful thing from America to Switzerland. And
how was it managed at that time? What did you notice that made it so?
It was the recipe for failure. First of all, you did not, since you both are not fathers, but maybe you were breastfed, I don't know. In those days, so 40, 50 years ago, babies were taken away from their moms right after birth. They were lucky to be shown the baby. And then every there was a total mechanical thinking about this, not physiological. And they thought the mom and the baby need rest after birth. And then so they were taken away and not shown 24 to 36 hours after birth. I know. I'm glad that you shake your head.
It seems crazy to me. So in 1960, because this is 1969 we're talking about. So you were in the full rage of the flower power in California.
But in the rest of the world, of the Western so-called civilized world, it was crazy. And then only every 4 hours. And the moms had to sanitize, like now we do with COVID. We had to sanitize our hands and sanitize the nipples. That was not that way in California. Sanitize our nipples, and the baby was brought fully dressed, sometimes with little gloves on so they wouldn't scratch their faces. And so it was insane. The midwife or the nurse, she grabbed the breast and the baby, and they just jammed it on there. And babies it was crazy. And then the mothers all thought, oh, I'm so afraid I don't have enough milk. And so if you know anything about the physiology, the hormones and the emotions, the milk doesn't flow then. They knew that about the cows, because they said, don't scare the cow, because she keeps her milk back if you scare the cows, on the field. And also that was really funny. Just when I started to go public with this Leche League thing in Switzerland, there was around noon, they had a what do you call it? Something for the farmers some information for the farmers, and I listened to that one when it said it's very important that the baby pigs, the piglets, get suck on the mom immediately after birth because of the colostrum. And I said, how come they know it for the pigs but not for us women? It was insane. And only one side, huh?
So you're becoming aware of this in say the 70s.
I started Leche League Switzerland in September 73, the first group.
Wow. And from 73 till now, this group has existed.
Yeah, it existed in America for over 6 years. In Switzerland, yes, it has. Yeah.
Well, that's quite amazing.
Still, or again, they do this time thing, and they had a very mechanical thought that the breast needs time to fill up. So we're only allowed to give one side at a time, and only every 4 hours. And at night, not. The babies were in the baby room for the whole night when they cried. So it was good for the lungs, or maybe they got a pacifier. And it was insane. It was totally insane.
And so how would you say the awareness you brought to it has changed anything?
Oh, it has changed a lot. I mean, babies are right after birth, they, if everything goes more or less okay. Yeah. The moms take the babies right to their boob, as you call it. And it's much more relaxed. Although I hear that it's becoming more, scheduled and tense again. So I don't know.
And so it sounds like, because when you were coming on, I didn't quite understand exactly what role your organization was playing. And if I take away what you say, it sounds like it's changed throughout the year. Sometimes it's about awareness at birth, and sometimes it would be about awareness in society. Because you did also mention, yeah.
Well, birth, and you cannot, separate birth and society and breastfeeding in society. You can't.
Yeah.
So, and still a lot of women don't breastfeed, although they would like to, but they're still giving wrong information, which I think is incredible. And it has a lot to do with power, I am very sure, not consciously, but subconsciously. The doctors, the OBs and the pediatricians and the so-called well baby nurses, they hated me because I put everything they told the women in question. I said, hey, that doesn't work. Yeah. And everybody was bottle feeding. And there was the Nestle process and court case.
Oh yeah, the Nestle court case. Okay.
Do you remember that one? No, probably. Of course not. Of course not. There was a brochure and a British. See, if I get talking about breastfeeding, although I've done it for so long, and I'm not active anymore, I could talk for 24 hours nonstop.
Bambos has a question for you, so I'll break in at the moment and let Bambos.
So is it right that if the baby doesn't latch on in the that first moment, there might be problems with breastfeeding?
It's more likely, yes. It's if the baby, the most beautiful thing is when the baby is, if the mom takes the baby herself, and then, or the midwife, it's actually better a midwife than an obstetrician because they are trained totally differently. If put it on the tummy of the mom and the baby slowly crawls up, latches on by him or herself, and then there is zilch problem. It was a Swedish pediatrician and a midwife who discovered that.
I've got to ask a question to Bambos. Bambos, how did you know what you just asked? Because it sounds like you did research before this show.
Yeah.
Bambos never does research.
Well, it's breastfeeding.
Well, do you know, were you, the two of you, were you breastfed? You ever talked to your mom about it?
I believe I was breastfed. I think I have a remnant of a discussion that I was breastfed.
Okay, cool.
I'm assuming, but we never discussed it.
It's fun, isn't it? Yeah. And now,
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, that question. Like, it's one of these things that you almost would ask, why would you, not that it's not important, not to know, but like me knowing or not know, like I don't even know what my blood type is. My wife drives me crazy. She's like, "What's your blood type?" I don't know what my blood type is.
Let's just get it checked, and now she'll be happy.
Yeah, that would be the same. But so if I find out if my mom breastfed me, I make you happy then.
So what's behind that question, Christina?
Yeah.
What's behind
Yeah,
that
what's
question?
behind the question?
How do you mean? What's behind what question?
Well, you're asking if we were breastfed. So
nothing. It's just if you you know.
Well, what would be the quality?
Top,
what would be the things you might say that, if at all? I met the strange man once, and the strange man told me he could tell a lot about a person by if they were breastfed or not.
That's too simple. That would be great.
I thought the same, but he was really convinced. He told me that he even said something about the underbite. He said that he said that if you could tell if someone wasn't breastfed because they have an underbite. And remember, we're in Amsterdam. There's a lot of people with an underbite in this country.
What's underbite?
Underbite is when you're sort of when you're and I always thought it was a bit. It sounded like funky logic, but I ask you because obviously you may have more experience.
I find that interesting that in Holland there are so many, because in Holland they had the most wonderful home birth for a long time. Still do, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so if home birth, it's so easy to breastfeed. It's much easier to have a home birth to breastfeed than in the hospital. So I'm amazed that you say there's so many in Holland.
Yeah.
Is it true? Because the suckling on the breast, the baby has to really kind of milk the breast. It has to really do a movement.
Yeah.
And in the bottle, it just goes glug, glug, glug in. It doesn't have to do anything.
Did you do it right?
No, I mean, I actually imagined it, because if you look at like when you milk a cow, even, it's not like you just pull, you're actually massaging, and there is an actual.
So the baby kind of pull what do you call that? Clamps on. I mean, not painfully. Sometimes it's painful if it's not managed well. Clamps down a bit and then sucks in, pushes the breast towards the mom, clamps down a bit, and then sucks in. So there's a lot of movement in the jaw, and they have really more beautiful jaws and teeth if they are breastfed. It's true. So he's right. Never thought of that, but he's right.
Yeah.
And some women, well, actually, I've heard of groups of women who actually breastfeed until the child is 3, 4.
Yeah. My third child, she was 4.
Yeah, I've heard of breastfeeding till I watched a documentary on it where it was a British family, and whenever the child felt anxious, then the baby would just, and baby, we're talking about an 8-year-old, would just come and breastfeed.
I personally would not be comfortable with an 8-year-old, but if people are comfortable, why not?
Yeah.
Like in Africa, apparently they do it.
Yeah, it was like a pacifier for like anxiety more than anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When my daughter was, like 3 and 4, I said, "Well, there's no milk left, Clarissa," and she said, "I know, but I feel it,
Yeah.
So that was it. When she was anxious or fell down or was sad or something, she just came and had a little suckle. It was just a natural dummy pacifier. So
yeah,
it's nice. Plus, it's not a plastic pacifier, and it has a heart that beats, and the arms that you hold, and you say, "It's okay, sweetheart," all that. And my motivation later, after I brought it to Switzerland, was always, I was convinced that if the needs were met when the baby is very small, which is or a little bigger too, but through breastfeeding, it's very easy to meet those needs. Then we would have not this consumerism in the world, and peace. It's a bit naive, but I still think it would help.
And why do you say that? What is the thing you feel that breastfeeding would give people?
You mean babies?
Oh, well, babies become people, I guess.
Okay. Oh, I don't think
But when you say peace, I'm assuming that if we were all babies, there'd probably be a lot of peace.
No, what I mean that if your needs are met, then you don't have this hole that you need to fill by consuming a lot or by being aggressive to fill the hole. Some people, fill the hole with aggressive stuff, some with drugs, some with consumers, some, that I still believe that is true, but it's not that easy,
Well, I would say, I mean, like, because we can't just in general, I think it's hard to say any single item, like,
exactly.
But if we look at it and you say, the deeper I go into my own kind of emotional journey, the more I see more and more subconscious elements, or I feel into these elements that have had an impact on me that I wasn't even really aware of unless I went into some really deep, dark places. And when we talk about breastfeeding, that would be, for instance, one of those really initial moments in life when you would really have a need for something that if you didn't get, you could never say how that would impact a child, and then as they grow.
Yeah, they become apparently more aware of not that the traumas, the bad things that happened to babies and children, but also the things that physiologically or whatever we expect that to happen, and it didn't happen, and that leaves a big hole. So apparently that is more a topic now than the big horrible things that happen. That this is also important, that things that did not happen, being listened to and being held when you're sad and being just acknowledged of your feelings. That was, when I grew up, definitely not what one did. So
yeah, but then you went to California in 1969.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about the flower power time. You would have at least experienced some love there, I imagine.
Yes.
And how much LSD did you take then?
None. I was way too. Honestly, now my kids.
No, I mean, I'm looking at this woman who's full of this love and joy, and she's there in 1969 California.
I was so. It was terrible. I've changed a lot. Thanks. No LSD. I would have been scared less.
You're Swiss though, and I lived in Switzerland for half a year, and I can tell you, Thun, and that was one of the most conservative places I've ever been in my life.
Right.
Yeah, it was the only time I said I felt like I lived in an outdoor prison. I was allowed to leave, but social interaction was very emotionally shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not California.
I want to say something actually,
Please.
because I see the show is getting a little bit
dragged down.
Yeah, I have a confession.
Okay.
I actually lied. I didn't do any research about breastfeeding. I do have a daughter.
You have a daughter?
I have a daughter, but
it's
I'm not talking about it much because I'm not allowed to see her.
Oh, that is real sad.
So I notice to even bring it up, it brings up a lot of emotions. But I realized I'm on this show, and I feel the responsibility to also share my part in this. And so when my daughter was born, back then we had like a water birth.
Really? They're beautiful, aren't they?
But the little one pooed in the womb, so we had to go to the hospital.
Oh.
So we ended up in the hospital, and then the midwife was not allowed to be there because we didn't have an appointment beforehand. And
in what country was that?
Here in Holland.
Oh, okay.
And it was a very long labor.
Mm.
And the mother they were giving her drugs, so she was in and out of it, and I was just there witnessing the whole thing. And the doctors were not very the woman had to lie down.
Oh God, yes, I remember my first birth. Oh God.
And because she had to lie down, and she kept on saying, I want to stand up, stand up. And eventually, after so many hours, she was allowed to stand up, but she had to go back. And after this doctor changed the shift, we got another doctor, and then that guy was much nicer.
Oh, good.
And but they did take the little one away, and that's why I know, because afterwards our daughter had problems latching onto the breast, so we had to pump and feed, and eventually she did latch on.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, there's so much that could be prevented, from so much pain, emotional and physical pain. If there's a lot of power structure, a lot of power.
So how comes midwives and doctors get a complete different training?
Because actually, I think if any gynecologist, obstetrician is listening, I'm sorry, but doctors are they are great if something is really the matter and they need a C-section. Other than that, they are not trained to go to accompany a normal vaginal birth. They don't know how to do that. I don't know any doctor. A friend of mine, a gynecologist, who's the only one with this very high level whatever, who did home birth. No doctor has gone from the beginning to labor, when they kind of start slowly, the whole until the baby is well latched on. None. They come and the big doctors and the midwife says, kind of gets pushed aside. One doctor once told me, says, I have to make sure the midwife does her job right. And I thought I could have punched him, but, wouldn't have helped. I mean, it's amazing, and midwives are trained more and more on the pathology of birth instead of the physiology of birth. It's a shame. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Your wife and your child and your baby, and that you don't see your daughter. Maybe one day.
There's also this thing which I heard a lot of women talking about, and like the woman has to lie down, and somehow there's for birth.
Yeah.
If it's in hospital.
It's insane.
And actually, it's under no discussion. Like even if the woman says, "I need to squat" or "I need to stand up," there's absolutely no. It's if the midwife is not there, then it's really a hard no.
If the midwife's there, she's more supportive of the woman, right? I mean, it's physiologically, you can just. There was one. I also, after the breastfeeding thing, I realized that a lot of things happened, but I realized that the better the birth was, the easier it is for breastfeeding. So I started to organize conferences on birth, and they were really nice. I had this most wonderful Dutch doctor, Kloosterman, I think was his name. He's apparently almost single-handedly saved home birth that was in the 80s, in the late 80s, home birth in Holland. So there are a lot of, wonderful doctors around, really, like Michel Audin, maybe you know of him, and a whole bunch of really, really wonderful doctors. And unfortunately, the majority right now has no understanding of what's really going on.
I think it has to do with sitting down and having an open discussion about it, and not saying that doctors are wrong, but actually educating each other.
Yes. Well. No,
they're wrong, Bambos. As far as she's concerned, get them out.
Yes, it'd be nice.
I love the look in your face, because it's always weird when there's something that's happened for such a long time. As irrational as it is, it's been institutionalized. So at this very moment, if one was told, hey, you have the choice between going to a midwife or to a hospital, which do you decide? I bet you the majority would still choose the hospital.
Yes.
Because there's a perception of security and if anything goes wrong. But
the thing is, more things go wrong in hospital. There's a wonderful British woman, Marjorie Tew. She was a mathematician. I also had her on one of the conferences as a speaker. A mathematician. She said, okay, I think we'll do something practical. She had to teach statistics. We'll look at the safety of birth. Mm-hmm. And she said, we'll do the big tertiary hospitals, teaching hospital, community hospital, and home birth. We'll compare the outcomes for baby and mother morbidity, mortality, etc. And so they did all the questions and all thing, and it came out that for me, and maybe for you too, it's no surprise. Community hospitals, small community hospitals, where the mother, she knew the people, and home birth were safer for both babies and mothers, morbidity and mortality, even for so-called women at risk. So she said, kids, I think we must have made a mistake, because everybody knows that it is much safer to be in a big hospital, just because, as you said, if something goes wrong. So they started all over again and changed a few things, and maybe we should have asked this a little more clearly, etc., with the same outcome. So she went to the dean of the university and said, listen to that. Look at that, the results. We've done it twice. We need to get this public. And the dean said, no, this is not to be published. It's going into your door, and that's that. So she thought, she didn't have any children herself. So she thought, that's not right. And she went to a couple of women's groups. They published it, and she lost her job. Voila.
Yeah.
That's how things go. And then she's written a really nice book about safer childbirth, ?
It's interesting, because if I look at society and how it's evolving, a lot of when we talk about society today, we often talk about it from the Industrial Revolution time. Basically, institutionalization of medicine, of schooling, what we consider normal. If we consider ourselves indoctrinated, we've been indoctrinated from that system.
Yeah,
and in some ways, when I think about it, obviously I'm not giving a lot of thought to birthing, but as I've become more open to just other ideas in my life, I've noticed that most of the people that I see today that are doing more work in self-awareness move towards home birthing into this sort of development. So I find it interesting how, as people move out of the system, out of traditional ways of doing things, they often find that these are the mechanisms or that are far more supportive, like homeschooling, of course, and other things in that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
When we had this subject, actually, the first image that came to mind, I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about breastfeeding in public.
Oh, we can do that.
Like, that was the first thing that came to me, because
But
it's a boob, get over it.
Exactly.
and then I had to think about all the media that I keep seeing about women being censored for breastfeeding in public, actually.
Well, I think, I'm of two minds of it. I have breastfed a long time, because my daughter now, my baby, she's 46. So I breastfed her in public. But you can do it, here I'm breastfeeding, and, display it all and be kind of exhibitionistic. Or you can just do it very, just no big deal. And you kind of put your blouse here, your t-shirt, and nobody notices it. Once I sat in a meeting across a guy. He did not have any children, so maybe he didn't, he was not quite aware. And my daughter was hungry, so she just kind of crawled up. I put my t-shirt up and breastfed her. And then for some odd reason, we talked about that. And I said, well, it's what I'm doing right now. He said, what? He didn't even notice sitting across from me. So I think if you do it discreetly, that is no problem. But if you kind of do it blatantly, you're kind of asking for it.
But there's something, but I'd like to dig into that one, right?
Okay.
Because you're only asking for it because society is so screwed up. So in a weird way, like, you could make the argument that, like, it's almost like, and not that we want to make it totally exactly this, but if a woman dresses in a certain way that the men then come on to her, like, yes, there's a higher likelihood, but the fact is that it shouldn't happen. Right.
Well, that should be all really disappointed if it wouldn't happen. I'm sorry if I say that, but
Yeah,
I think if they don't whistle after her, then she'll be disappointed.
Oh, okay.
You know,
I'm assuming rape in this case. So
I see.
I took it one step further in my mind, but
no.
yeah, there's a fine line between where you're actually dressing in order to find attraction and when it goes too far.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So the same with breastfeeding, with anything, you know, we're always part of it, of both. It's not only one side and the other.
But I mean, like I've seen even, you know, I think I've taken pictures of these boxes that exist in the world where it's just breastfeeding boxes where you're supposed to go into this room to breastfeed. It's just for breastfeeding.
Also in the airport.
Yeah, it's like
little rooms.
And
little
you
rooms.
know what? It's called nursing room, and the sign is a bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's good because the baby gets distracted and the mom doesn't feel so comfortable with all the people around. So be kind of nice, but you don't have to go in this box.
No, sure.
I like it the way you call it boxes. I
had a very interesting kind of business meeting. I was mentoring a CEO, female CEO that had a baby, and just as normal as can be, she was pumping milk just while we were meeting. Right. Just as, you know, like, and I thought that was the coolest thing.
You did? Why did you? I thought it's sad. Why didn't you bring her baby with her? Like the president or whatever it's called of New Zealand. But isn't that cool what she does? Yeah, brings the baby to the hearings or whatever. But her in Germany, apparently even a professor once and some students, they bring their babies to the lectures and they just feed. No big deal, you know? Yeah, I guess whatever it was, I just thought it was that I didn't think that far ahead because my brain doesn't think, why isn't the baby here? It was just so common and normal. And because it was so common and normal for her, it was so common and normal for me because it actually only, a lot of times only becomes an issue because people make an issue of it. Exactly. That's exactly what I mean. Also with breastfeeding in public, from the mother's side about it. When they go all big and then they take a towel and they drape it here. And I mean, honestly, you just, you know, so it's always two sides. Yeah, but in that case, just help, because I'm trying to think that's not the discreet way. The discreet way wouldn't be with the, like, what do you think the discreet way would be, just to help me understand what you would imagine? Okay, let's say this is my t-shirt. Yeah. Okay. I just pull up the t-shirt a bit or my sweater or something, and I put the baby here and you don't see anything. The baby covers the lower side of the boob and the t-shirt or the covers sweater. The above. Yeah. Covers the baby. No big deal. Yeah. It's really no big deal.
Christina, when I feel you speak, I'm detecting a lot of passion.
Yes.
Like a lot of passion. And when you said I can talk like 24 hours about the subject, I'm wondering what drives that passion.
I have been asking myself that, you know, over the years. And I think, like me, so many things, it's something that happens in our very early baby or childhood. I was born at the time also when they, 4 hours, nothing at night. And my mom tried it. It doesn't work like that. And I was then my mother's mother gave her as a present, I gave her, my mother, a baby nurse to take care of me at night at all. So, I mean, I know as a mom, if you have this new baby, you want to take care of it. Even every animal wants to take care of your baby. And then they put me in a room by myself. I mean, I think it's insane. And at night, when I cried, I know that from my mom, they didn't pick me up or anything. My mother said that in the morning when I woke up, I had my eyes, they had to kind of put some water on my eyes because they were all glued shut from the crying. I said, why don't you pick me up? She said, I didn't think of it. I mean, that was, the time. And I think that was happened. And I was a preemie size. I was very, very small. So I think it's because of that. Because inside I experienced the pain and the sadness for mother and baby if you can't be together and breastfeed. And it's so simple. I'd have been way too lazy to bottle feed my kids. Oh my God. You meant all that work to bottle feed.
I want to slow us down a little bit and go back to that moment, because I felt that we skipped that moment of the baby crying into breastfeeding with a bottle, into feeding the baby with a bottle. Like, I just want to sit with that a little bit.
Okay.
Have you worked with women who have had this experience, and how was that for you?
Like what experience?
Oh, like seeing babies that are not just left there to cry.
I mean, have I worked with women?
Have you supported people that are actually in that situation?
Thank you.
No, I've supported the women who wanted to not do that.
Yeah.
Because I have done a lot of therapy. I mean, on my own. So I know, and I've heard, other people with their own experiences as a mother then and as a child. Are you familiar with the Gabor Mate's work? Yeah.
All I know is he's on every Facebook feed that I have nowadays. I don't know where he's not. Like,
no, I don't think.
have you know Gabor?
Yeah, but he's very interesting when he says, I just read his book on drug addicts. He says the worst thing the most painful thing for women and men who are drug addicts and they have children and the babies are taken away from them. They feel the most pain and guilt and that the pain and sadness for having failed their children. And I'm sure my mom inside somehow she felt that she failed me and she failed herself. And there's one picture in my photo album. I think that's the saddest picture I have in my whole photo album. There's this big, I was born in 1942, so they had these big baby carriages, and there is this baby nurse they used to have these Bailey kind of things, and she's pushing the baby carriage with apparently me inside, and my mom walking kind of dejectedly next to her. I think that's such a sad picture, I'm sure she felt she wanted to take care of me, but her mom gave her this gift, meaning well, and totally not understanding what it was all about. Nobody did it out of meanness or bad intentions. They really had good intentions, as you know.
They just didn't know any better.
Huh?
They didn't know any better.
And having good intentions is quite often not such a good thing.
How does that for you? Because Bambos has had the drug addiction, and we've often discussed on the show about feeling failure, and I think I've heard you say quite a few times you feel like you failed in that area. With
the dad?
Yeah. Having not, can you connect to that when Christina says that?
You're going to have to rephrase that.
So when Christina was speaking just now, she said that people with drug addiction often have a problem that when they don't have a relationship with a child, they feel really deep sense of failure. And
sadness, yeah.
And sadness. And I think about
people with a drug addiction?
Yeah, because
what?
That's what I read in Gabor Mate's book. That he said they really feel, because the babies and children are taken away from them, from social services, also meaning well.
Yeah, but I didn't have a child while being a drug addict.
Yeah. It wasn't. So it wasn't during the drug addiction, but somehow I equated it with your experience, just because I have often heard you say that, and I was wondering if you could connect to that. No.
Okay.
No.
I can't say anything about that either.
No, it was just something that triggered me, because we've talked. There's been a few episodes we've been discussing about just feelings of failure, not feeling like successful, and I didn't know if that was connected in some way.
I need to sit with that. When you said it out loud, I didn't feel the connection.
No,
but it will be interesting to explore that.
We don't need to do that now. We'll do that on another episode.
We actually said beginning of the show, oh, do we need tissues?
Yeah. We like to be like open about everything on the show, including our own sadnesses.
Yeah,
So
I've watched a few of your episodes.
oh, that's right. You mentioned. So yeah, we might go off. You might start facilitating both of us at some point. Yeah, I mean, my mom's loss is the biggest trauma that impacted me my whole life.
Yeah.
And in that loss, I lost, when we talk about breastfeeding, like I don't necessarily think about the physical act. I think about the moment of feeling that sense of peace in my body. Like I can sort of feel like, wow, that's what it feels like to feel that level of connection. And I often find that with the loss of one or both parents, and you look and you say, wow, there's no one there to take care of me anymore. There is this deep hole that people have to go through, especially as you get older and you look and there's no generation ahead of you anymore. You're the next generation to go, right? Grandma, grandpa die, mom and dad die. And then you're like, oh, wow, I'm now the next in line. And somehow there is some connection to the, call it, as I hear breastfeeding, just because that's the topic we're on, I can sense in myself a deep connection to that state.
So
Wow.
your mom must have breastfed you. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. When you talked about the heartbeat and the feeling of the warmth, like that's a deep, I can feel very much a sense of like, I don't know, I can drop into a very safe place in myself when we talk in that space.
That is really beautiful. Lucky you.
Yeah, I was really lucky. Yeah,
it's great.
And then she died, and then I had an abusive dad left over. So that was the journey I had to make in my own life. Yeah. Yeah.
You're quite sensitive, huh? Or as Andy speaks, I notice it's impacting you.
Yeah, I find it's beautiful. Yeah, it is. Yeah, because I didn't have that, So I worked a lot to be able to have other moms and other babies have this experience, because I came from the other side. I came from the lack of it. So
I'd also like to touch on that, Bambos. In the reaction for Christina, I see often when I tell you how information comes into me, like I often feel the things that are said to me and think of them less. So when you speak or when I speak and I see your reaction to me, I feel a very similar way of how we process things. So you might just move your mouth and I'll feel your underlying intention, and that'll impact me more than your words.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of feel similarly for you, but obviously you're not reacting to the positive, so I can't say for sure yet.
I'm not reacting to the positive?
So let me be more precise. Like I see when I speak, I can see you empathizing with me in a way which connects us.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I'm connecting to you not logically per se, but I'm connecting to you in a more of an emotional space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, I don't take that for granted because it doesn't always happen that way.
No, it doesn't.
So when Bambos noticed, and I've noticed your reaction, I'm very similar in that when someone talks to me, I feel it in my body more than in my head.
I do too.
Yeah. So even to the point when someone describes something disgusting, I can't hear it because I'd rather see it in a movie, to be honest with you, because in a movie I can distance myself from it. But when
you can close your eyes.
Yeah, I can close my eyes. But when someone expresses it to me, it's like I'm like, ugh, I move my body around because it's like I got to move it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I guess I have the same pattern as you do.
Yeah. And I think it's nice because I've talked to Bambos a little bit about that the last few weeks. I often say I very rarely listen to people at all. Like
you don't?
I kind of hear myself as they speak. So I'm kind of in connection with my own feelings and thought, and then they speak, and then I see how my body and my mind kind of move through their words, but I don't necessarily listen logically per se to what they're saying.
Okay.
And it's not good nor bad. It's just what how I observe myself.
Yeah, it's incredible what an awareness you have of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's incredible, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be aware of that.
Yeah.
That you are, how do you say that's the way you are, or process.
Well, I mean, like, imagine if I changed my tone to you. Christina, I'm really excited to have you on the show. It's been really fun to have you here. Then what I'm feeling
I'm having a finger that is kind of moving.
What I'm feeling inside is, wow, that person is not grounded, or that person is sort of and
bullshit.
So
sorry.
exactly. Well, you can say bullshit. It's allowed. We had to decide, because we have a podcast, how do we label it? And I didn't want to listen to all the podcasts, so I call all of them illicit. So basically, we have to assume that fuck is said at one point during each show. So the E actually belongs on our show titles.
Fuck.
So, but yeah, so I feel that energy so deep inside myself that the words are always kind of like lesser than that feeling. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I can even say, wow, I don't trust not the person, but I don't trust the words, because I know that they're not necessarily grounded in something that's knowing. It's still trying to prove something. Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
I'd say that Andy's a bullshit detector.
Yeah, and Bambos is a bullshit detector as well, which makes it really, I see him as the best mirror for me, because he makes trainers' lives a living hell. He's like the person you don't want. He makes trainers, like when he goes to a training, like he's the worst student in a training. Because if you're not consistent, if you say one thing and you behave another way, he won't pretend like that's not happening. He doesn't allow that to, and
it's changed.
Well, slow down. I want to praise it for a moment before you go to the negative. See, he hasn't realized, because we've had this discussion off air a lot as well, is that he hasn't been praised for actually having that skill. He's actually been hit down by the teachers, because it's easier to minimize him than it is for them to take responsibility where they might not be consistent.
Or authentic.
I would even, that's an even better word.
I think so. You don't take BS from anybody, Bambos?
Yes.
Good for you.
Good for you.
Good for me.
And he's still, can you please, how many shows do I need to force you to embrace it?
I'm not going to smile.
I want you to embrace it, man.
I am embracing it.
Yes. It's been his whole life. He's been hit down and not praised for the thing that he had strength in him.
But that's a past. From now on, it's different.
I would love it if that were true.
It is true.
It is true, Bambos.
It is trendy.
Do you believe? Tell me when you believe it. Say it's true until Christina believes you.
Yeah, he's not authentic yet.
I know.
He will.
He will.
You just said I'm the worst person having a training, because I got into trouble so many times.
Yes, cool.
That's great. That's what I'm trying to say.
You call them on their bullshit.
You call them on their bullshit.
That is cool. That takes guts.
That takes guts.
So what Andy has been, what he's been coaching me is to also not come from a blame, like I see this, but really from a loving space, because even the teacher might be blind to that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So how to stay in connection with that and not alienate the person. So.
Yeah, but we're talking two things. The capacity that you have to see it is one thing. How you address it is another thing.
Yeah.
So the fact that you have the ability to immediately feel there's an inconsistency here, this doesn't feel right. That's a great power that a lot of people don't have to begin with. They're bamboozled really quickly. Bambos was in a training of authenticity with a teacher who was using authenticity to get sex with the students.
Use authenticity?
Yes, because if I create if I create authenticity in an environment of safe trust, it's really easy to manipulate someone now
But
into
that's
more.
not authentic.
Exactly. And that's what
That's a
Bambos, that's manipulation. And Bambos felt it in his bones, and he confronted the person to the point that the person had to push him away to get him out of the situation completely in order to secure his own identity. Because he can't admit that he's actually using this tool for manipulation.
Oh, they say people teach what they most need to learn. So
yeah. So that I want that to be celebrated. That's all. I'm taking this moment to celebrate it. Yes.
How are you going to celebrate it tonight, Bambos? With a glass of champagne?
Don't give a drug addict champagne.
We took Bambos out to dinner on Friday night, this past Friday night. And
oh, yes, you said that.
Him and his wife.
You said that on the divorce ladies thing.
Yeah. I just like to share on a wholly different topic today. I realize I'm getting older because I went to the obstetrician. That's it, the obstetrician.
The obstetrician?
The obstetrician, the optometrist.
What's that?
The
so you're going to give birth?
Just going to give birth. I'm on the wrong show. I needed to get. I went to the optometrist, and we came to the conclusion that I need to get bifocals.
Okay, well, you can also buy the book "Take Off Your Glasses, I See" by Jacob Liberman.
Okay, nice. And what is the topic of that book?
Take off your glasses and see. It's a seeing without.
So now I see less of you when I take my glasses off.
That's good, but you don't need to see me because you feel it.
True.
Anyway,
very good point. Yeah.
It's a really cool book, by the way.
Oh yeah.
To see without glasses.
What's the premise?
That you can see without glasses.
Oh, literally. I'm waiting for some deep meaning. I'm waiting for you to tell me, well, basically all of our lives our glasses symbolize the indoctrination of everything that we've experienced to this moment. Take off the glasses.
Oh, yeah, maybe too. Yeah, also, of course, you have beliefs. Take off your beliefs.
Yeah.
And then you see. It's a cool book. It's a really cool book. Because I see without glasses. I used to wear glasses, so.
Oh yeah, and then why do you not have glasses on now?
Because I do these exercises and change my beliefs, and.
So you do exercise to strengthen the eyes. You do exercises to strengthen the eyes.
Yes, and to let go of tensions in the eyes.
Oh wow, how many fingers am I holding up? 5.
Thank you. See, the two of you did 5, although I.
I love it. So we have a few moments left with you. I'm wondering, is there any topics we haven't got on that you'd like to share? It's things that you'd be curious to even ask us.
Well, I'm not asking us, but asking you, but I would like to share. I think it's just so wonderful the way you two work together. I'm a bit envious of the two of you to have this working and friendship relationship. So it's very, very beautiful. And you both are so different, and yet you really appreciate each other's qualities. So that would be another topic. Friendships and trust and all that. I mean, there are tons of topics.
That could be a talk show, friendship.
I'm now teary-eyed because of that. Yeah. Oh. Thank you. It's interesting because, when you do these sort of things, others expect for you to justify it somehow. Like, what is your business model? What's the plan? Those are the questions we get most often. Yeah, I know it's strange, but those are the questions we'll receive. And it's weird to respond, no, we do it because we love it. And we love, and me being together. In fact, a few weeks ago, Bambos was really having a hard time on the show. And I saw that he wasn't really able to he wasn't able to be here. You're right. He'd just be here emotionally. He shut down. And listen, I'm sorry, I have this cramp in my leg. No, please go.
No, I'm just kind of massaging it. No, I have to stand up for a second.
Please. You have to give birth to your cramp.
No, okay.
Look at that great poster you've got on the wall.
Oh, it's my window.
Wow.
And you're sitting there with a bare wall behind you when we've got an incredible picturesque mountain. That's unreal, that mountain you've got behind you. Can you please pan over to the left? We want the full panorama that you have.
That is just crazy beautiful.
That's incredible. We're doing a home in now.
It's okay.
Look
Wow.
at that. Wow. Now that's Switzerland if you've ever want to see Switzerland. For those of you that have not. And where is this, by the way?
It's called Lumbrijn.
Okay.
Lumbrijn,
and it's in the Val d'Omnetia. It's close to Gour.
Oh, wow.
And I'll show you the...
I'm fascinated with your walls. It looks really like you've used plywood and just like tapped plywood onto the wall.
Well, not quite. But it's pine.
Pine,
and that's my neighbors. The farm.
Wow.
Can you see the farm?
I can see the farm over there. That's great.
Yep. And the cows come and eat my grass.
Oh.
So they're my lawnmower.
The cows in Switzerland are some of the best cows I've ever experienced in my life.
Well, they don't quite. They still suffer some, but they don't suffer as much as.
It's true though. Bambos thinks I'm joking.
I know you're not joking. That's why I'm laughing.
Because they all have names.
They have names. They've got, you visit them. I mean, they play music, and it's for the animals in Switzerland sometimes.
They do?
Yeah, at least I've seen videos of that.
All right.
Yes.
So.
Well, we've hit our hour now, so I don't know what I was saying earlier, but it can't be all that important.
No.
About the business model, I wanted to say that you do what you.
All I know is this: is that,
and it's because
it's because we love each other. And if Bambos wasn't here, I honestly don't know if this would feel like this would bring me any joy. Because at the end, it's like you know, when we started this talk with you, I can chit chat and we'll talk about breastfeeding and this and that. And then Bambos always makes sure that it gets grounded if it moves too heady. And that's wonderful because God forbid I learn about breastfeeding on this show. I'd rather learn about you and what makes you tick and, why you've picked one subject to, take so much initiative around in your life. That's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
But I haven't been active, counseling or anything for some time. So I was quite amazed when you said what you want to talk about, because there's some other topics. And I said breastfeeding. It was the first thing I got really active in.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I must say, I love the fact that your head is peeking in from the side. It looks like you're a hand puppet right now.
I'm just massaging my leg.
And you look very mysterious. There's something really sexy about you when you're off camera, just peeking in with your hair.
It's a great compliment. Okay, and you do what you love. You've been at Peter's class, so
yeah, I'm very fond of Peter Koenig.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen the show on the Money Show, Peter has been a mentor. Even though we haven't even spent all that much time together, the 2 books I've written and the one coming out at the end of this month, it's just I've stolen all of Peter's work and just applied it in ways that suited me.
Great.
And I'm really happy to have his name in both books, and he's read and appreciated both books. Yeah. And him saying that he liked it was really felt really, really important to me because he had such an influence in it. For him, if he said it was shit, it would have felt pretty bad, I have to say. So
and I'm joining his workshop starting Monday.
Are you? Yeah. Cool. Yeah. The master course or just the workshop?
The master course.
Are you? Cool. Yeah. Wonderful.
Nice.
2 of my kids done it.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah. Great.
So we now leave you. We come to the end of our hour. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I must admit that before you came on, I had no clue how we were going to spend an hour talking about breastfeeding.
That's a great thing about, there's no preparation. You just both authentic and you kind of invite authenticity from your interviewees. It's more like a conversation than an interview, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really great. Thank you.
Thank
Love
you. We
both.
send you a hug, yeah?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, hug you too. Bye.
Bye. Bye. It's interesting how these shows sort of just become their own little thing,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything come up for you during the show?
Oh, just sitting there in the beginning when we started talking, he said, "How do you know?" And how I skillfully avoided, like,
Oh, yeah.
you actually, and then I was sitting there and I felt the pressure cooker, and I was like, okay, this can go two ways. Or I'm going to sit here like a pressure cooker until you feel it and say what's going on.
Oh, I already felt it, but I kind of thought we were regressing back to a few weeks ago when you were shutting down. You know, when the topic of, you know, oftentimes when people come on, they assume you don't have a kid. It's maybe the third or fourth time someone said that. Neither of you have kids. Yeah, exactly. They always say neither of you have kids. And I've just always let it, you know, I didn't say, I didn't want to correct. Say, no, Bambos actually has a child.
Yeah, I also didn't feel for.
Yeah. But the thing is that it's such an emotional topic for you that to not address it also means that you shut down in the show.
Yeah, definitely. I felt that. So
I loved when you brought it in. I kind of felt like, wow, that's the power of you, is if it's something you're avoiding, you bring it in. Yeah. And the conversation shifted after that, by the way. I don't know if you noticed.
I noticed.
It was really beautiful. Yeah. So thank you for that. Great. And we didn't get to Magda's quote, but Magda was mentioning that in 1982, it hadn't improved for her when her son was born. So she obviously had a lot of the experiences that Christina was speaking about as well.
This was in Austria.
That was in Austria and Vienna. Yeah. Or maybe it was, well, I'm not exactly sure if it was in Vienna or not. So do you know who we have on tomorrow?
Quickly check.
Yeah, we might as well.
Wow, we're not prepared for that.
No,
right?
so you normally have a list, but I've been feeling a little bit sloppy lately.
Yeah, Andy's doing a cabbage diet.
I'm on the second day of my cabbage soup diet. If you've never done a cabbage soup diet,
Don't do it.
7 days of cabbage.
Don't do it.
And you get cabbage plus another thing.
Don't do it.
Today I get cabbage plus vegetables. I can eat any green vegetable I want and a cabbage soup. And it's pretty out there. So who will we have on tomorrow?
I'm looking 3, 4. Is it the 3rd tomorrow?
It'll be the
Wednesday.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we have it on the list. We'll have to check it out then. We will. You'll have to look at the event page to see who we have on tomorrow. It was great being with you.
Have
Thank
a beautiful
you.
evening.
Have a good day, night, wherever you are. Bye.
Bye.